Anime has always been a known thing in Japan, but it was always different in the West. Anime definitely became more mainstream with the introduction of shows like Dragon Ball and Pokemon. It still felt like anime was a foreign concept in the West though. The first huge impact of anime in the US was due to streaming platforms like Crunchyroll and Netflix, which made these shows available to everyone. There were still a lot of people who had a harsh viewpoint on anime as a whole and everyone who was associated with it. The anime shift, as everyone calls it, occurred during lockdown and everyone had free time, so they decided to try out anime for the first time and they started to love it. Anime has become a worldwide phenomenon, and it's estimated that around 800 million people actually watch anime. Now let's get into what this video is actually about, the history of anime from then to now. The oldest known work of anime originated between 1907 and 1912. The name of this anime is Katsudo Shashin, and it's a 3-second video that shows a boy who removes his hat and then he bows. The boy in this video writes the kanji characters, which means moving picture or activity photo. In December of 2004, a dealer in Kyoto obtained the collection of films, and luckily enough, this film strip was a part of them, but it was also in poor condition. When this discovery was made, the Japan media covered it and had a lot of people talking about it. This anime, if you can even call it that, was made with the Kappa-bon. Now you may be wondering, what is a Kappa-bon? This was a device that was used for stenciling slides back then. This 3-second animation consists of 50 frames. This short film barely has any information on it, so I will instead talk about the first publicly displayed anime, which was Namakura Gantana. The name Namakura Gantana translates to dull-edged sword in English. This anime was made with chalk, and this is a 4-minute short film. Our main character gets fooled with buying a dull sword, and he's confused on why this new sword can't cut anyone or anything. Now let's talk about the background of this anime. This film somehow got destroyed in a fire in 1971, but a person named Matsumoto Natsuki discovered the film in the summer of 2007 and brought it back for the whole world to see. Not much is known about the earliest examples of anime, which is fair considering how old they actually are. Throughout the years, there have been many different types of animes, such as shonen, slice of life, seinen, romance, fantasy, isekais, and others. Now, throughout this video, I won't be specifically talking about the first anime ever made in these genres, but I will talk about old ones that are also decently known at the same time. If you have seen a good amount of shonens, then you have probably heard of Astro Boy. Astro Boy is known as the first shonen series and was made in 1952. Astro Boy has around 112 to 115 chapters. Astro Boy has had a huge impact in the creation of many mangas and anime in the industry. Now let's get into what the story is actually about. This anime follows a person named Astro Boy who is a robot but has the emotions of normal humans. A scientist created Astro Boy to replace his son who was killed in a traffic accident. The scientist who made Astro Boy realized that this robot could not bring back the actual personality of his son. So what did the scientist decide to do? He decided on sending Astro Boy to a circus owner. Now let's get into the powers of Astro Boy. The key powers that come with Astro Boy include flight, super strength, and enhanced senses. The influence of Astro Boy isn't relevant just in Japan. It's also relevant across the whole world. You could even say that this anime/manga would give hope to the future of Japan. Some noteworthy anime series that were inspired by Astro Boy include Jetter Mars, Pluto, Dragon Ball, Kimba the White Lion, and many more. The actual influence of Astro Boy goes way farther than just simple inspiration. There were many concepts from Astro Boy that brought upon a new era for how anime is made. Some key shonen features that were brought upon by Astro Boy include the inspiring shonen protagonist whose heart is pure and is a hero. Another key feature that is used so much is the image of huge eyes. Osamu Tezuka, which is the author's name, was inspired by early Disney films and used his style in order to fully express his characters. Astro Boy not only influenced future anime and manga in the future, but also reconstructed the whole style as a whole. Also exploring themes such as discrimination, good versus evil, and the sense of identity is what makes this show the perfect piece of media to inspire the future of this medium. Now, we've all heard of other shonens like Naruto, Dragon Ball, One Piece, Bleach, and Attack on Titan. These shows are just the tip of the iceberg, and there are still thousands of more animes that I can mention. But I want everyone to know about the original shonen that truly changed anime as a whole. Now let's get into another fan-favorite genre, which is known as romance. It's very hard to actually find out what the first full-on romance anime ever made was. Finding the first shonen was a lot easier considering how iconic Astro Boy is, but finding the first actual romance is basically impossible, so I'll just talk about some romance animes that were released a while ago and are pretty well known. First off, let's start off with The Rose of Versailles. Surprisingly, it has a 4.8 out of 5 on Crunchyroll and has an 8.3 on IMDb. The story of this anime follows Marie Antoinette, but the attention is later shifted towards Oscar, who is the youngest of the 6 daughters. Antoinette starts an affair with a Swedish person of noble rank. This affair would eventually lead to her downfall and her reputation. Oscar would pass away in battle after leading the revolutionaries to a war. Antoinette would soon be punished and executed by the guillotine. Netflix would release a remake of the show in the year of 2025. This story has always been a fan favorite even if it was released a long time ago, which just shows how much of an impact it's actually had. Now let's talk about another romance anime that was released a while ago, Sally the Witch. Sally the Witch was a manga that was running for many years but finally got an adaptation in 1966. This anime is special because it's known as the first magical girl series to ever be made. The first season would run for about 2 to 3 years with 109 episodes. Now, fans of the show would have to wait around 20 plus years for the second season, and it would run for also about the same time as the first season. The second season would conclude with a total of 88 episodes. Now let's actually get into the story. Sally is our protagonist and she's also the princess of the Magic Kingdom. What she wants is an opportunity to go visit the people she calls mortals. When Sally gets teleported to Earth, the first thing she actually does is defend 2 of her classmates from getting robbed. Sally would live in this realm without anyone actually discovering who she is and what she can do. The grandma of our protagonist notifies her to come back to the Magic Kingdom. Before Sally departs for the kingdom, she tries to tell her friends about who she is, but they don't pay her any mind until she uses her powers to save the school. We see Sally wishes a goodbye and she eventually returns back to the kingdom. Now let's talk about the last romance anime known as Candy Candy. Unfortunately, the production of this anime was stopped due to copyright disputes and legal battles. This anime was produced by Toei Studios, which if you don't know is a very famous studio. They are responsible for the likes of Dragon Ball, One Piece, Slam Dunk, Digimon, and Sailor Moon. Now let's get into the story. Candy is an orphan who spends a couple of years at the orphanages. On one random day, Candy's best friend known as Andy was adopted, which would make her sad. Candy meets this random boy who comments on her beauty when she smiles, and his nickname would be known as the Prince on the Hill. After turning 12, her wish of finally getting adopted would occur. She waited all this time, but it turns out the family did not care for her at all, and they treated her like a servant. Candy meets a boy named Anthony who looked exactly like the person she saw at the age of 6. Eliza and her brother Neil harass Candy at every given chance, which eventually leads to her trying to run away. Candy is about to fall off a boat, but a mysterious man comes to her rescue and saves her. After getting caught stealing in Legons, she is sent to work on a farm in Mexico. Candy finally receives some good news, which consisted of her grandpa basically adopting her, even though it's never 100% confirmed. A lot of stuff happens, such as the death of Anthony, Candy going to college, and returning to Chicago after breaking up with Terry. It's revealed at the end of the story that Albert, her legal guardian, was actually the prince on the hill. Romance has always been a huge factor of human life, so it's enjoyable to see it being placed in anime. Over the years, we've seen so many different romance animes such as Horimiya, Kaguya, Dress Up Darling, Toradora, Your Name, Your Lie in April, and many more. Romance will always be that one genre that you could always turn on whenever you want to watch a wholesome show. Now the next genre is personally one of my favorites, seinen. Just to let you understand the types of anime and manga in this category, I'll list some. Berserk, One Punch Man, Vagabond, Monster, Parasite, Tokyo Ghoul, Vinland Saga, and more. I think you get the point at what kind of demographic these animes/manga are catering to. Obviously, it's not just limited to this range, and people who are younger than 18 and older than 40 can definitely still experience it and feel the same emotions. The demographic above shonen and seinen have their own unique qualities which makes them special in their own way. Let's get into the first seinen ever made. According to Wikipedia, series that were targeted towards a mature audience started, and this gave rise to something called Gegika. Now you may be asking yourself, what is Gegika? Gegika is a style of Japanese comics that focuses its attention more on the adult audience and also has many more mature themes. Lupin III is considered a shonen, but also includes many mature and adult themes which would categorize it more as a seinen. Now let's get into the plot. We follow our main protagonist named Lupin III. Lupin is the grandson of a notorious thief. Lupin works together as a two-man team of someone named Daisuke Jigen. Jigen is amazing at shooting projectile weapons. In some instances, they work together with another person named Gomon, who is basically a master swordsman. We also have Fujiko Mini, who is the love interest of Lupin. Throughout the whole story, Lupin and his group of friends are getting chased by Inspector Zenigata, who will do whatever it takes to stop them, no matter where they are. The second Lupin series started to air during October of 1977 and had about 155 episodes. The third series would air in March of 1984 and would have around 50 episodes. This franchise has many adaptations and is still pretty popular to this day. This just shows how much of a legacy the original actually left. Now you may or may not have heard of this name, Shinichiro Watanabe. Shinichiro Watanabe is the creator of Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop. He revealed during an interview how influenced he was by the series. Now let's get into another beloved genre, with series such as Fruits Basket, Bocchi the Rock, Weathering with You, March Comes in Like a Lion, and many more. These are called slice of lives. The first actual slice of life anime, from what I've heard, was Otago Manga Calendar. Once again, it's very hard to actually locate the first anime, not just for slice of life, but for any genre as a whole. Now instead, I'll choose another more well-known anime, and my pick is called Heidi, Girl of the Alps. This anime ran from January 6, 1974 all the way to December 29th of 1974 with 52 episodes. Heidi, our protagonist, is a 5-year-old who currently lives with her aunt. The only other relative Heidi has is her grandfather, and her aunt wants the grandfather to share some responsibility in taking care of her, even though his reputation is familiar with a lot of people for supposedly killing a young man when he was young. Heidi is able to live with her grandfather, and her day is spent with a person named Peter. Heidi is left with herself being illiterate, which is caused by her not being allowed to go to school. Heidi goes on with her normal day-to-day routine until her aunt comes back and has a good window of opportunity for her. A wealthy man is looking for a person to become friends with his crippled daughter named Clara. Heidi didn't know that her aunt would try to use her in order to gain wealth, so she asked to stay, but unfortunately she is pulled away by force. She causes a fit at the train, but she soon realizes she cannot stray away from this path. Heidi eventually befriends Clara, and they soon teach each other new things. The feeling of wanting to go home is stuck with Heidi, which allows for her to attempt multiple acts of escaping, but they all result in failure because of the new friends she meets along the way. Heidi is able to learn the concept of reading and writing due to Clara's grandmother teaching her. Heidi has a random case of homesickness in which she will randomly walk through the halls at night, which terrifies everyone else. The members of the house decided to send Clara back to the mountains, which is a good result since she finally reunites with her grandfather once again. Clara's condition gets better over time, which allows for her to be able to walk normally. After finishing the physical therapy, she promises to see her friend soon. The story ends with Heidi finally attending school and the two families remain close to each other. Now, before I go into the whole concept of how anime has expanded over time and the legacies left behind, I will end off this genre sequence with one more. If you have been an anime fan for even a little bit, or even if you're not an anime fan, you've probably heard of at least some of these shows that I'm about to mention. Evangelion, Gundam, Code Geass, Gurren Lagann, Darling in the Franxx, and many more. If you don't know the name for these types of shows, then let me tell you real quick. They are called mecha animes. You can probably tell what a mecha anime is just by the name, but let me give you a quick definition. A mecha anime is an anime that has large robots which are often controlled by humans for different reasons. Now, a mecha anime doesn't have to have a huge focus on robots. Code Geass, for example. Code Geass uses robots more as a plot device, but I would still consider it as a mecha anime. There's also other shows which have a huge focus on the robot aspect, such as Gundam. Now for one of the first mecha animes ever made. Some sources say it was the first, but I don't know. The name is Tetsujin 28 Go, which is also known as Gigantor. This series started off as a manga in 1956 and was then adapted into an anime series in 1963. There's a term that goes around called the grandfather of shonen, which can either refer to Astro Boy or Dragon Ball. This show can be referred to as the grandfather of mecha anime. This television series ran from February 1st, 1960 all the way to April 25th of 1960 with 13 episodes. In total, there have been 4 anime television series, 1 Japanese drama, 2 films, 1 live action, and also 1 animated film. You might not have known this, but this show was responsible for inspiring the likes of Pacific Rim and Akira. The creator of the series Akira, which is also another very famous anime, borrowed some names from Tetsujin and used it in his own work. During the final parts of the Pacific War, the Japanese army were developing this secret robot called the Tetsujin 28 Go, but sadly they could not finish it in time because they had to surrender. Dr. Kaneda, who was the developer of the robot, gave the robot to his son. Our main protagonist named Shotaro discovers his creation given to him by his father, and he uses it to protect the innocent and to also fight back against crime. This anime also revolves a lot around the aftermath after a war and shows the effect it has on everyone. These genres that I listed are some of the most notable ones. So now let's get back into talking about anime as a whole. Thousands of animes have been produced, but only some have redefined the decade that they were created in. As I mentioned before, Astro Boy was insanely popular in the 60s and dominated that decade. For the 70s, it was Ashita no Joe, which is a story revolving around an orphan who discovers his love for boxing. This show goes into the topic of redemption and how one should always try searching for their own meaning of life. Now for the 80s, this one is pretty obvious, but I wanted to give some honorable mentions to Akira and Grave of the Fireflies. 1986 was the start of arguably the most iconic anime of all time, Dragon Ball. The original Dragon Ball series ran for 3 years and ended with 153 episodes. Dragon Ball follows the story of Goku, who goes on a journey to find the 7 Dragon Balls, and we see how Goku becomes one of the most beloved characters of all time. There were many incredible animes in the 90s, such as Sailor Moon, Neon Genesis, Cowboy Bebop, and Yu Yu Hakusho. The One Piece anime did come out this decade, but it was at the very end. Honestly, this one could be either between Evangelion, Sailor Moon, or Cowboy Bebop, so I'll just say it was all 3 of them. The 2000s was arguably the best year of anime, the best decade, considering that it had the likes of Bleach, Naruto, One Piece, Full Metal Alchemist, and also Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Also, other notable shows such as Death Note, Code Geass, and Gintama. The 2010s were also another very good decade of animes. Some notable animes this decade involved Hunter x Hunter, Haikyuu, Re:Zero, Vinland Saga, Attack on Titan, the Fate Zero franchise, and also Madoka Magica, and also many more. Now for the latest decade to the list, the 2020s. This decade had shows like Solo Leveling, Jujutsu Kaisen, Link Click, Chainsaw Man, Spy X Family, Dandadan, and many more. Since the first anime ever released to now, we've seen so many varying styles of animation, and the rise of anime has been prominent more and more around the whole world. As I said before, I would say that COVID greatly increased the amount of people who actually watched animes. There's so many different animes, so it's basically impossible to find a show that isn't of your interest. Every year there's hundreds and hundreds of new animes debuting, and this statistic will keep rising over the years. Technological advancements allowed for the animation within animes to keep changing and evolving over time. When you think about it, it's insane to see how developed the quality of animation has changed over the years, and we can see this in shows like the Fate franchise, Demon Slayer, JJK, Mob Psycho, and more. I mentioned this before, but having streaming services add animes to their sites just makes them more accessible to people who want to try it out and see if they like it or not. The amount of people that are exposed to anything just increases the popularity of said thing. And we can see this just because of how mainstream anime has become in general. Anime is a form of medium that everyone and anyone should be able to enjoy no matter the age. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and also check out my latest video which talks about time travel anime such as Re:Zero, Steins Gate, Link Click, Erased, and Summertime Rendering.